Boom! This episode of Talks with KG is sponsored by Canai Cleaning Services. Quality service at all times. Located out of New York. Big up all my New York peeps. They have been in business for over 15 years. So you know the thing's set. Anytime you need your house clean, your school clean, the hospital clean, it don't matter. Just link up at Canai Cleaning Services. If you want to call, the number is 917-200-4362. And if you want to email, it's canaienterprise.com. We'll put it to the bottom of the screen. Also, Jave Auto AC, located number 182 Eastern Main Road, El Dorado, for all your AC needs. Right now, the sun hot, the sun blazing, so make sure and pass through Jave Auto AC. That is it. Boom! Welcome to another episode of Talks with KG, where we keep it real and nothing else but real. And tonight, we have another wonderful episode. I want to bring to the forefront Phillip Alexander. Well, go on. A lot of people are shocked right now. They're saying, what going on Talks with KG? But you know, Phillip Alexander, I did an interview a week ago with Michaela Pandey. You know, I say because the politics in season, you know, we had to focus on that because a lot of youths look at the program. And one thing I noticed is that they know everything else, you know. They know about the music, they know about the entertainment, they know about the parties, they know about all kind of thing. But when it comes to politics, they don't understand. The reason why I want to interview you, Mr. Alexander, is because you're one of the most controversial figures in that realm. So if you ask a youth about politics, certain names they might call, you know, and Phillip Alexander is definitely one, for sure, right? But what I don't appreciate is the fact that the youths don't really know what really going on, why Phillip Alexander probably does be talking out like that, why he does be saying certain things, why we always seeing all on the internet back and forth. So I say, you know what, let me bring some clarity to the thing and some clarity to who is Mr. Phillip Alexander. Because I and all don't know, I being real, as a young one in the life, same way too, and I and all don't really know who or what is Phillip Alexander? So that is why I come here today, to accomplish that. Who is Phillip Alexander?
Well, I like your opening, and thanks a lot for having me. And
yeah, man, for sure.
To all of your viewers, I understand you have a massive viewership.
Yeah, for sure.
I was one of the first people on social media to the level I was on social media. Mm-hmm. Some of the things were accidental and I can mention another interview I did recently.
Of course,
What You Know, I was interviewed by What You Know.
Loveless. Yeah.
Right, so he asked me how did I get into politics, and I said that it took a circuitous route. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people didn't know what circuitous meant.
I don't want to know what that
it meant that it took some corners and bends in the road, right? Mm-hmm. But when the internet was new, I formed a company in 2000, and we owned CaribbeanOnlineYellowPages.com.
Right, that was your company?
That was my company. I want to take you back to a time.
Yeah.
In 2000, cell phones were bricks in your hand. 99% of people had no laptop, no computer. It was still new territory, just 25 years ago, and it sounds crazy, but nobody had a website.
Definitely.
Nobody had an internet connection in their office. In fact, for us to sell advertising on Caribbean Online Yellow Pages, we had to print out what web pages look like in the sequence that you could do a search and laminate them and put them in a binder, because we couldn't even go into an office with a sales manager or a general manager and go on a computer because they didn't have.
Right. And
we couldn't get laptops then that were small enough, that had battery life long enough.
Right.
I mean, this was back in the days of iOmega zip drive and SideQuest and stuff that people hearing me don't even understand what I'm talking about, right? And CaribbeanOnlineYellowPages.com was the biggest Caribbean website in the world. We were getting site traffic in the millions per month. Right. What we offered was a free search all Caribbean database.
Yeah.
And if you were in business, you'd be listed for free. So you didn't have to pay. We would list you for free. We got that database by hiring nearly 100 people
Right.
to type into a database every Caribbean directory that existed.
Right.
Because they couldn't even give us the data digitally.
Right.
There were no ways to move that much data. Back then, flash drive was 5 kilobytes.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm telling you, right?
Yeah.
And we used to go to companies and their advertising agencies to get information. There were so many file extensions. Nowadays is JPEG, text,
Right.
and basically that's the market. But back then, there were so many different programs. You call them apps now, but there were so many programs that had so many different file extensions that, and they were coming on so many different mediums, so many different zip drives, flash drives, iOmega drives, mini discs. It was crazy.
Right.
And thankfully, there was a company on the corner of Lewis Street and Arapita Avenue where a casino is now called Computer Planet. And Computer Planet, I'd go there at the end of the day with all of whatever we get from everybody and convert all of them to protocols that we could use.
Right.
Those were the days when you're building a website, you were typing in HTTP
Everything.
colon, right? Backslash, hypertext transfer protocol. That's what we were dealing with. And we were typing in code.
Right.
Programs didn't have just push play. To get into Caribbean Online Yellow Pages back end, and I'm giving you a lot of information, I hope I'm not boring you.
No.
To get into the back end, you had a Fox Pro program, a separate program that had maybe 20 instructions, code instructions to get you into the back end just to manage the database. It was crazy times, wild west of the internet. But that was my business. And we created Republic Bank's first website, Angostura, big companies. They I tell you, they didn't have, nobody had. And we were the largest in online.
Right.
We were bringing Caribbean businesses online.
Right.
So their first taste of having an online presence, we created something called a contact sheet, where every advertiser who advertised with us got a web, what is now a web page. And on that page, you will get about the company, products and services offered, keep company personnel, and a small form for your name, your email address, and for you to, whatever your message is, and hit send.
Right.
That would go to their email address. All of that was so new that people to use it, I mean, there was a learning curve and stuff. So that's what I did for a long time.
Right.
I did that right up to about, I guess, 2015. And so we were managing the online presence. There were a lot of companies that in Trinidad and Tobago that started in somebody's house, in the garage, that grew into a big company.
Right.
And we were managing their email addresses. We were their tech support if they were having a problem. So a lot of Trinidad companies. And so I branched off into communications. I was doing we were creating their logos, their slogans, and there are plenty logos and slogans out there that came from us. Our company was called Atlantic Telecom.
Right.
And we were based in Atlantic Plaza on Atlantic Avenue. So when people read that, they saw Atlantic Telecom, Atlantic Plaza, Atlantic, they thought, wow, this is a massive company.
Right.
And one of the things we had to do was to pay the online services for each and every company. So we would need US dollars to put on our credit card. Because remember when the thing was clunky, the bank didn't give you US on your credit card unless you had US in your hand. And then all of a sudden, it got really hard to get US. Really hard. And we needed a lot of US to pay Paria Networks and Name Secure and other companies that we were dealing with.
You know, people that say, no, I probably mightn't understand exactly how these things does work, right? But I always say in the terms like we need US and we need US. But money is not digital as a sense of like if I want to pay for something in
Money
the
is
States.
digital 2 years now.
Oh, so it wasn't always like
Not
that.
at all. We lived in a hybrid world for a long time because if you remember when cell phones came out, cell phones were TDMA,
Right.
which was an analog-based system.
Yeah.
And that's why I told you just now, Computer Planet really made a big difference to a lot of us, because we got to go in there and change. The internet only became possible when somebody wrote hypertext transfer protocol.
Right.
That made it possible to translate the different types of languages that all the different types of computers were speaking into one language.
Right.
And when everybody met at that one language, they could have spoken. So it's like you in a room with a Greek, a French, a Japanese, a Chinese, whatever, but all of them could translate to English. So HTTP was the internet's version, right? And so a lot of things were analog that you had to convert and to manage. To make online payments, it was a lot of steps. And it was not like, I talk about a time when you go in the grocery and you pay with your credit card.
Right.
They had to pull out this machine and a form and put your card and clack, and they would, you remember this?
No, I would never.
You wasn't in my life then, probably.
I didn't have a credit card.
The
that day,
reason
for sure.
your credit card was embossed, the reason it was raised, was for that machine. So they slide this, so they put your credit card under a carbonated form, right? And slide this thing, clack, straight across, that would imprint the information from your card on the form. That's how you made a payment. So you have to understand that. That goes in an envelope. That envelope is sent to America. That's the madness. It wasn't online, it wasn't digital. So we had to go and get the US to make that happen. And when it started to become really difficult, I went into Republic Bank on the corner of Woodford Street and Tragrit Road one morning to get US, because the quarterly payment that we pay for all of our clients, one of our quarterly cycles was due. So I went in there to get about 5,000 US. The bank gave me 200 US. I need 5,000 US for my business to run. They gave me 200 US. And the manager explained to me, and everybody explained it to me in the bank, something is wrong in the system, and the US is no longer available. And so I was driving away, trying to understand how I'm going to run my business if the lifeblood of the business is no longer available to me. And I was driving past where Spectrum used to be, Mecca used to be, next to Movie Town, where all the cars come off the ship. They're still there. Next to, before Movie Town, all the... And I was watching all these cars, and this place is always full of cars, and I know that's foreign exchange, have to pay for that, US. And I pull over, and I angrier, and I made a 5-minute video, must be less. And 99% of the people watching this know this video. Because this was the first video in Trinidad that went that viral. Before, when you uploaded something on Facebook, you would get a little square notification in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you get more than one, they would stack. This is happening, this is happening. It's like, that's what original notifications were on Facebook. So it would come, and then that would go, and the next one would come, and your page will slow down to accommodate this, right? Anyway, I did this video telling Trinidad and Tobago, look behind me at the amount of US that is being spent on this, and people who need US for their livelihood and their business. Anyway, it was my first rant.
So it wasn't ranting before that. You're just keeping your feelings to yourself.
I was nice and cool and calm. I swear to you, I had no public profile. But this was just my Facebook page. Phillip Edward Alexander, that's all it was, my Facebook page. Everybody had their Facebook page, and they chatting with one another, throwing sheep, sharing cocktails. Remember those days?
What's on your mind?
Nice, right, good. Right? Exactly. And I uploaded this. And in about 24 hours, when I opened the screen, that little notification was running. You couldn't see. It was just running. That video went millions of views. And people were just messaging me that you hit the nail on the head. We need more people like you talking and da. And then a couple months later, Facebook made it possible for you to do a live video where you look into the screen and talk. So I tried one.
So you try it, let's try.
Tried one video.
And you say you're going to rant?
Was on my mind. And I swear to you that it just built from there.
So you went live, and what you were talking about, the same situation?
Other issues. Now, I've always been politically aware, and I've been politically active in my circle. So I was knowledgeable. But I didn't have that online persona that I have today.
Right.
But with the advent, I would write blogs. That's what I did. I had a blog. You know what a blog is?
Of course.
No, I just saying. Because all of this is, I just telling, these are the steps we took to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
And I had a blog called Plain Talk.
Right.
And it got me a column in the TNT Mirror. And I was the only columnist that was writing for both the weekend and the weekday Mirror. So it was basically those things.
Mirror wasn't the newspaper that used to have like all the fake stories?
No, that was the Bomb.
Oh, that's Bomb, right.
The Mirror was published by Maxi Coffee. You know who Maxi Coffee is?
Name, yeah.
He was a government minister. He had a stroke. So Maxi was my editor. And so that stuff, I basically became a voice of the people. And people started messaging me, hey, you need to raise this issue. We're not brave like you, but if you want to, that. And that's still the case today.
Right.
A lot of stuff that I share, I get from people who don't want to take the risks that I take to speak out. Because Trinidad is a place where you run the gamut of having your name assassinated, to smeared, damaged, disrespected, and they could murder you. They murdered Jean Myers, they murdered Selwyn Richardson, they murdered Dana Sital. Trinidad is a dangerous place for the truth.
Damn.
The truth is not a welcome thing in Trinidad. If you look at how governments, the current person occupying the office of Prime Minister, because he's not the Prime Minister, they have no clause or schedule in the Constitution that allow them to do what they just try to do.
Right.
But the person who is occupying that chair, in an interview they asked him, what is the most dangerous thing in Trinidad, or what's bothering him the most?
Right.
And he, obviously clueless, didn't know about the poverty, the lack of water, the traffic, the shortages of healthcare and the failure of education, the justice system, people languishing in jail, all of those things going on in Trinidad. And he said the biggest threat to democracy in his mind is social media.
AKA the truth.
Because it was social media that told Trinidad and Tobago that he lied about Delcy Rodriguez and the drug lords that came to meet with Keith Rowley during COVID. People, I realize Trinidadians don't hold hard memories for long.
No lie. Short-term memory.
Yeah, we are people, we like, give me all the distractions, but the important bits of data, we don't hold it for long. And I know people are forgetting how rough that COVID experience was on all of us, personally, business-wise, everything. It was a damaging time psychologically.
Right.
And when there was a time, and I don't know if you remember this or if your viewers would remember this, but there was a time, a lot of our trainees who were outside when COVID started, that were trying to come back home. Seo Chung, as Minister of National Security, wouldn't let them in.
Correct.
He wouldn't let them in. There were people from outside messaging me. They had run out of money. There were no systems for them to get help. The Trinidad embassies and high commissions were closed, and there was nothing in place for them. And these were people, they weren't poor people by any stretch of the imagination, but they experienced poverty for the first time in their life because They ran out of money to pay where they were staying, and it was open-ended, so you couldn't tell the people you renting from, you have a clue as to when you're going to get back.
Right.
They couldn't even pay to extend their tickets. They were having trouble feeding their children. It was damaging times. I remember the Prime Minister of Barbados spoke about it. We Trinidadians can't be so heartless, let your people in. I remember Derek Chin, the owner of Movie Town, he had messaged me to see what help I could give him. He said, if you could have carnival in a bubble, I come in my own bubble, I come in a private jet. And he wanted to bring home this lady who was dying from cancer, who subsequently succumbed. They wouldn't let him in. And they wouldn't let people in. And for 3 months, no planes landed. And then people at Piarco started to speak. People around there started to speak that a plane landed in Trinidad last night. And the Ministry of National Security was denying it. And then people published flight logs from flight apps that tracked the plane from Venezuela to Trinidad. And it was a Venezuelan plane. So Stuart Young said he didn't know about that. And he didn't know who was on the plane. It turned out it was Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro man of business, with about 4 or 5 drug lords. But Stuart Young had signed that manifest for each of those people to come into the country. This is why he hates social media. He hates social media because I was able to go Paria when those divers were consigned to death and bring that information in the public space, 48 hours of live video. That everybody in Trinidad today that knows about the divers and how they died in that pipe, they got it from my videos there. Rain, shine, night, day, we were there fighting to get the divers out. And every lie they told, we were able to expose the lie. And the management and the board of Paria had stayed radio silence for 2 days. And then 8 o'clock on Carnival Sunday, summoned all the media, and they did a press conference in Paria. And it was so many lies they told. And I said, right after their press conference, we're going to be doing a press conference of our own. And we got a rickety old table and some chairs, and we started on my live video as a press conference. All of the media that were in Paria ran across, and they just came around that table. And this was the first time Michael Kerban, the son of Kerban who died in the pipe, he spoke to Trinidad and gave Trinidad the chronological order of events that took place. And well, again, that went viral. And the media took bits of that and used that. And when you look at it, the people found out, and Trinidad got angry. But if there was no social media...
The people found out, and who got angry?
The Trinidadians are angry.
I mean angry about the situation.
Trinidadians are angry. That's what forced them to do a commission of inquiry. Trinidadians still not over the divers. Trinidad not over is Andrea and Ashanti. Social media gave us the opportunity to do a candlelight movement that... You remember that? That brought the people together, and it is showing that social media allows the people to express their humanity and their community. Because what the government wants is to manipulate the conversation through propaganda. They're telling you what to think. Social media gives you the opportunity to have your own thoughts. That's what you do. You give everybody a voice. They are afraid of that because they want to manage and manipulate the narrative. Sunday Guardian had published a picture of the ocean and saying 4 divers missing at sea. We've known for 24 hours the 4 divers in a pipe. They had started to sell the narratives that the divers were dead already. Christopher Boudram climbed out the pipe, ably assisted by Kerban's father, and came out the pipe bruised, bloody and bleeding, beaten, broken, looking for gear. He want gears. He want to go back inside. He said all of them inside, they're alive. They rushed him to hospital. They said, we'll take care of it. How they took care of it? They brought the Coast Guard with guns loaded. No rescue. And we still, nobody in Trinidad to today knows why. And this is why I given my support to Kamala Prasad because I want to tell you something. I want another commission of inquiry into what took place with those
Why
divers.
would you say it happened though? What's your thoughts? Because I know, look at the whole scene, I listen to the audio, everything, it breaks my heart. Up to this day, I can't even listen to that whole video. You know, I seen everything in my head. But why would you say?
No, but you looked at
you
the
know?
video.
I didn't see the video.
No,
I just saw.
No, but
I
you know,
heard the
okay.
audio.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
But I'm
Had a
saying
video?
they had a GoPro camera.
Serious? Had a
The
video of
last,
inside it?
when they washed them out,
Yeah.
as dead bodies now,
Yeah.
the GoPro camera came out and we have that footage. Nobody knows what Stuart Young, Colin Piper, Newman George, and others were covering up in that pipe. There was something they didn't want the world to know. And I think a lot of distraction has been thrown at Trinidadians. I want to tell Trinidadians and Tobagonians, there will be another more in-depth inquiry into what took place in that pipe. We have to know. Your government killed 4 men. That is what the Commission of Inquiry said. That it's corporate manslaughter, failure to mount a rescue. Anyway, for Stuart Young to say that social media is the biggest threat to democracy, it shows you the measure of that man. He is not somebody who thinks that you and the people who watch your shows or come on your shows, that you all have rights.
Yeah, it don't matter.
He don't think you have rights. Free speech, Faris Al-Rawi had said free speech is not absolute. Every other right.
Free speech is not absolute. What
That's
I mean,
what
though?
Faris said.
But what I mean?
He
What
said
I
you
supposed
must
to do?
qualify free speech, and that's what they want to do. Okay, we're not cinema, right?
Yeah.
There's a statement that free speech is not absolute. You're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater if there is no fire, because you could cause a stampede and injure people, right? So that qualification of free speech makes sense. But they want to control the mechanism by which speech is made and who gets to hear what, and that's a different thing. That's a totally different thing, and I was going to tell you just now, all of the other rights that we have go away if free speech goes away.
Of course. Of course.
That's the most important of the rights. So that you could tell others, hey, this is going on. Because they manipulate the narrative to suit themselves to their benefit. And before social media, we lost $3 trillion.
3 trillion, you're saying?
That's what came into Trinidad and Tobago from our oil royalties. And we have nothing to show for it. Nothing. 90% of the infrastructure in this country was built by the British. We've added very little. We've added extensions. We've added very little.
That's actually a good point that you bring up. I never look at it that way, you know. Like the majority of our infrastructure wasn't even created by our leaders.
No, we're driving on roads that the British built. What we built embarrassed us. The Foreshore Freeway was in the Guinness Book of Records for the most expensive quarter mile of highway in the world.
Most expensive, they say.
There was no way to justify the cost of the Foreshore Freeway. Central Bank Towers in the Twin Towers. The architect who designed that told the government, this is not a good place to put it. Because when you're building a building, the foundation has to be anchored in bedrock. Or you could build a floating foundation, but that's very expensive because it has to do with the weight and the movement. But the government insisted on going forward. There was a time, a guy by the name of Wrightson was one of the engineers that reclaimed a lot of the land that we know as Independence Square and South Key today. There was a time the sea used to wash up against the Red House. So everything below the Red House is reclaimed land. When you deal with reclaimed land, you're not dealing with bedrock. So when you want to put up a building that big, that tall, for it to stand and not fall over, you have to lock it in the bedrock. And they were telling the government that they were sinking pile after pile after pile, and they were not reaching bedrock. And the cost of the foundation of the Central Bank Towers in Trinidad cost more than the actual building. Now there was a time when the government could get away with what it wanted because it controlled media. You had to have a license to broadcast, and you had to have a license to publish. And there's an organization in Trinidad and Tobago that could pull your license and prevent you from publishing.
Right.
And
That was then.
that still exists.
They could tell KG no more podcasts. They could put me on that.
They don't have that control yet on social media, but they've been trying. The people who own DirecTV hate cable,
Right.
and they've been fighting cable, but cable went away. They're still fighting that battle, but now everybody has access to streaming. And the one side of the argument is that we don't make money from it, but find a way to monetize it.
Correct.
Find a way.
Correct.
You know, internet service provision is one thing you could do to monetize it. We're going to lose that just now because Starlink and other companies like that, you're going to be able to pay your internet via credit card to a company in America, and they send you a satellite dish in the mail, and you said,
Right.
we had the first Starlink in Trinidad to test it, Elon Musk thing, and it was functional.
Right.
And that was, you could say that's still beta testing. So it's going to get to a place where nobody's going to want hardwire to their house anymore when you could just, anywhere you go in the world. So you could find a way to monetize it. What I'm saying to Trinidad and Tobago is, you cannot allow people to take away your free speech.
Definitely.
You cannot.
Definitely.
Things will be done to people. I tell you here now, what is not covered by the traditional media, for whatever reason, and we've gotten to a place where very wealthy people own the media.
Right.
So only what they want broadcast would get broadcasted.
Yeah.
To the average family who has a child or a loved one in jail, I'm talking about poor people who can't afford lawyers, who can't afford bail,
Right.
that have one of the thousands of people locked away in our prison that are there years longer than they could have been if they were convicted and served the time. They're still there and no way to come out.
Yeah.
That is a human rights atrocity. No media is covering that.
Yeah. For real. For real.
Nowhere. You should,
Yeah.
because of the size of your following,
Yeah.
you should get in touch with the prisons
Yeah,
commissioner.
I want to.
Talk to the
Matter of fact, a
prisons
lot of
commissioner.
times I try to get into the prison and.
Nobody
do
talk to the
certain
commissioner or the head of the Prison Service Association. These guys outspoken. Talk to the head of the Fire Service Association. He will tell you that people burned to death. 24 people burned to death in this country last 5 years because they have fire stations that have no fire truck.
Yeah. Yep.
The fire trucks have no equipment. The fire trucks so the stations that have fire trucks have no equipment. The stations that have fire trucks that have equipment reach to your fire and the hydrant not working. People burn to death in Trinidad because of the dysfunctionality of the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service.
Right.
And the Fire Service Association president has been trying to get people to understand. In fact, the diver's story, the day that day, a couple days before, 4 children burned to death in Maraval. Children.
Right.
They burned to death in the morning behind Royal Bank. People going about their business. There's a hardware, there's Royal Bank, there's KFC, and people going about their business banking. And there's a house 10 feet behind Royal Bank on fire.
Right.
I swear to you, the madness of watching people going about their business, and these children are holding wrought iron and burning to death. There's a fire truck there.
Yeah.
The fire truck have no equipment to take down the burglar proof end.
Wow.
These children burned to death because, and I went to the fire headquarters and I was doing a live video. That live video, Satish could give you, that live video still exists. They were ducking and hiding. I was trying to find out how is it possible. This is before I met the fire service president and association president. This is before, because he reached back out to me. And I'm doing this video, and one of the fire officers came downstairs and said to me, listen, the chief fire officer said, call the police for you and get you off the compound. So I gone in the middle of the road in the highway and I doing this. My phone rings. And there's a fella named Kerban. And Kerban telling me that, hey, there was something going on in the country. 5 divers get sucked into a pipe and nobody taking us on, and it's carnival weekend. And I was fighting the fire service.
Yeah, you on the fire, right.
I was fighting for that. That day I went home, the fire service, head of the association, he got my number, he called me. We were doing that video, curb and call. We had to interrupt that video to switch gears. Live on social media, I called Stuart Young, I called Keith Rowley, I called Faris Al-Rawi, I called them all to ask them, saying, listen, something is going on in Paria, their lives at risk. None of them, Carnival weekend, none of them took any of the calls. I went down Paria and covered it. When we finished dealing with the divers, when that matter was resolved, for want of a better word, I finished my interview with the head of the Fire Service Association. He said to me, he said, Mr. Alexander, you are the first person giving me a voice. He said, I talk to the media and the media don't cover it. That is not free speech. So when Lisa Morris, the member of parliament who burned to death the other day, I said to the public that the government is responsible for her death. Right. They flipped the narrative and said that I said something bad about her. I never said anything bad about Lisa Morris Julian or her children. Right. The person I said something bad about was Camille Robinson Regis, because she was holding her belly and bawling in the middle of the road, and I said, we told you years ago that there are no fire trucks, there have no fire equipment. On my video, the Fire Service Association president said, listen, when you see a building on fire and you see fire coming through the roof, it's not that the whole building is on fire. Right. Something in the building is on fire, that is spreading fire, and you have to get to the source. Right. To get to the source, firemen need protective equipment, and one of the things they need is something called self-contained breathing apparatus, which is the exact same thing as scuba. It just don't have the underwater.
We don't have that.
None.
We don't have that?
They had none.
We don't have that, like, period?
I don't know if they got since, but they had none. Understand this. Woodbrook Fire Station has not had a fire truck in Woodbrook for 30 years.
What? You're telling me?
30 years.
What do you mean?
There's a fire station in Woodbrook, one of the densest residential areas in Trinidad, has no fire truck. What happened to Lisa Morris Julian was the two stations closest to her, both had single-digit engines and both were on other fires. So that by the time they got to her, and by the time they tried to deal with the problem with the water, because they're not sure they're getting water when they come, she and her family had already succumbed. And I told Camille Robinson Regis that you're a blasted hypocrite.
Because you told her that
because
long time.
You've known. So now, for the first time, the whole cabinet is outside. Where were you when these little children were burning to death in Rockery Nook? Why didn't come and hold your belly and bawl for them? And that's what I said. And I will defend that, and I will say that again and again and again. Do you know, and you should get in touch with the Fire Service Association president, do you know that after that fire when Lisa Morris Julian and her family burned to death, after all that stunting from the government, they've done nothing? The situation is still the same.
Ah, boy.
These are the things. So when people say Phillip controversial, who else running in that story besides me?
Well, as you say, Trinidad don't like the truth, so you don't be scared. Because you now say they are a place where they're killing you, all these things. And you, Mr. Phillip, you're the man who will be burning the most at a fire. If you're talking about fire, you burning the most at fire. You don't feel, unsafe.
I remember when they started to gears up for me, I remember.
And they mean gears up for you?
I'm telling you, all I'm telling you. I remember when they started to gears up for me, the first thing they did was they unleashed hell. They started to send out poison letters. Phillip responsible for this, Phillip responsible for that. This is the man Phillip all you're listening to. And when I tell you, there was a list that they published. I have about 50 things that the only thing I checked to see, the only thing that I didn't do was kill Christ. And I'm telling you, the nastiest things that you could accuse somebody of. And they have a way that they could tweak information. Let me show you, right? It was like Patrick Manning sold his car to Sankey Subans. Sankey Subans sold that car to Dole Chedi. The rumor mill said Patrick Manning sold his car to Dole Chedi. You understand? So they could say that A murder took place on the corner of Charlotte Street and Independence Square in April. Phillip was there in June. Phillip, what you know about that murder that took place in April? And listen, that's the kind of constructs. I'm reading this thing, eh? Now, this is the first time I get in that level of pushback. And all I studied is my mother, my father, my children.
Your family,
When they see this, and there had so many people in the political party we were new, that they would come to say, you see this? There were people who were of the opinion, you have to answer all of these charges. I say, that's all made up. If I answer all of these charges, they're gonna make up more. That dogged me. And when my tenacity, I want to tell you, survived it, they upped their game. I am the only person in history that got 11 defamation lawsuits. One time.
11.
Now, if you ever had a single lawsuit and appreciate the anxiety and the stress
of one
matter, imagine 11. There were times when I had court appearances, 3 in a day.
Jeez.
And it was not comfortable. While that going on, a gentleman involved with the United States Drug Enforcement Agency, a Trinidadian based, he called me and he gave me some information. And I had to meet him. He didn't want to send it on anything. He said, there is a credible threat on your life. And he showed me a picture of a person that was paid to kill me. And this is a man involved with United States Drug Enforcement Agency. And I am watching this and my blood goes cold, because in that minute, I realized how unsafe I was. Right where I was, I realized how unsafe I was, because anybody, anywhere, anytime. And I had to call one of my friends, and they came and they picked me up, and they sat down in that car, and we drove around for a while. I didn't know if I could go home. I didn't know where I could go that I could be safe. I didn't want nobody to know where I was. It is a panic. The first time you get a credible threat against you, I went to the Four Roads police station.
That was the first encounter of that type of energy.
First.
Yeah.
I went to the Four Roads police station. I made a report, gave them all the information. They never followed up with me. I never got a call back to say this is the status of the investigation. Nothing. But I found out, because I got a message, you're watching the news. I said, no. He said, that same person in a shootout with police dead.
Go to sleep.
But but I am thinking to myself, and they're telling me that it is a man in a Prado that dropped an envelope for this man. They gave me information all these years ago. So it's useless now. And But I'm saying to you, people, lawyers and stuff gathered together, people in security and things gathered. They took me to a place and they did a threat assessment, and for a while, my life was controlled, my movements were controlled, it was planned. I couldn't do the same thing twice, I couldn't go the same place twice, I wasn't allowed to go home for days.
And your children and that kind of stuff.
Everybody was put somewhere else, and it was a scary time. I went through
still burning your fire, Mr. Alexander. So, why? If you went through all of that and you see what coming to you, what make you still say, but I don't care, I continue in my journey? Because me and find you tamed down. It didn't look like you tamed down to me.
No, I didn't. But you see, my father is not with us anymore.
Right.
But he was a strong man. And he drummed into his children. You know who my brother is? My brother is Dr. Paul Elias Alexander. He is the person, he's the author of Presidential Takedown. He is the person who stopped Fauci and the COVID vaccinations. My brother is an activist in America. He's part of the presidential team now. my family, my whole family are activists. Everybody.
They come from that
Some
bloodline.
level, at some level. Because you see, my father was a Syrian man.
Right.
And at a time when, if you are a Syrian and you marry outside of the race, you get excommunicated. It was very cloistered and it was closed off to the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. They lived like that. I mean, they would know people, but internally is a tight circle.
Yeah.
And my father fell in love with my mother and he took the gamble.
Your mother's a black woman?
She is very mixed.
Right.
But he took the gamble. Once it's not Syrian,
Yeah, licks.
because my maternal grandmother is Portuguese, my maternal grandfather was Venezuelan, and he was mixed, Creole, the whole mix-up, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
red people. And for most of our growing up life, we belonged nowhere. In school, there were groups of children that we had no tribe.
They
So-
mean to you were by yourself.
Yeah, because-
So Syrian line with Syrian.
Correct.
Right.
So nobody know what to do with me.
Right,
My father raised us to believe that to whom much is given, much is expected.
Right. True.
Our life experiences made us all very strong people. We've had to be strong.
Right.
And when injustice happens and you are present and you do nothing, there was a fellow called Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Right.
I used to read a lot. And he said, this was a pastor he was a German pastor, and he was against the Nazis in World War II, and they told him they will kill you. But he was one of the most outspoken people. And he had made a statement once when they told him that he was at risk. He said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil.
No lie.
He said, God will not hold you blameless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. That is his statement. That stayed with me. Not to speak is to speak. If I see you and wrong being done to you, and I don't speak out in your
It's
defense,
part of the problem.
I am helping your oppressor.
Of course.
I am helping the people doing you wrong. And I don't want to be that.
Correct.
So to ask me, I tell you, the journey was circuitous. I didn't think that politics was what I wanted for my life. In the beginning, it was really tough. I was an activist for a long time.
Right.
We used to help the homeless, the orphans, the disabled. I felt like to whom much is given, much is expected. I'm using it up here.
Yeah.
My father was cool. We would feed the poor. We had a program called My Daily Soup. We would make sure that all the homeless got food daily.
Right.
The disabled, I am the person who got handicap parking in Trinidad. There still is no law, you know.
Right.
We had to literally fight to get those handicap spaces.
There still is
There's no
a
law. There's no
so
law.
I could park in a handicap space.
There's no permit. There's
Oh,
no
hear that?
nothing. That's the truth.
No law.
There still is
So
no
they
law.
can't get a ticket. They can't park clamp on your wheel.
What happened was, we just negotiated with organizations to set aside preferential parking for handicap. And since then, it's mushroomed and it's snowballed, and everybody just, when they're building something now, they know to set aside.
Yeah, handicap.
But they not even town and country ask for it. There's no regional corporation requirement. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There are no sizes. Nobody knows. They just, but when you go to a place and you see handicap parking, the owner of that building is a good and decent person that set that aside for the handicap.
Yeah.
But those were the fights that we were fighting.
Right.
But the situations in Trinidad, you realize that you're fixing and it's not stopping, because the government have no interest in it stopping. And you realize that the only remedy to political dysfunction is political function.
Yeah.
So you have to get yourself involved.
Into politics. And that is what really inspired you to come in the thing and make some real changes.
Well, I mean, I knew people like Lincoln Myers, Clive Panton. I mean, I knew good Raoul Panton, who wrote the two books, 1970 and in 1990. He was a journalist present for both. He was a journalist activist. I was involved in stuff that he did. So I had a lot of experience from a very young age with that. But nothing prepares you for Trinidad politics.
Yeah.
Nothing prepares you for... It's a vile thing, you know. It's not enjoyable. To say that you're going into politics to fix things,
Yeah.
the people who benefiting from the things you're trying to fix don't want you fixing it.
Yeah.
You get that?
Yeah.
For $3 trillion to be stolen,
Yeah.
money leaves a trail. For $3 trillion to be stolen out of the economy, the Ministry of Finance have to be aware.
Yeah.
Central Bank has to be aware.
Right.
Because money leaves a trail.
Right.
And Chamber of Commerce has to be aware. People know that Trinidad, people take for granted that Trinidad is corrupt. From the licensing office, from trying to get your license. Nowadays, I hear people not even trying to go and do no test. Just pay one time and take your license.
Everything you're paying for right now, if you had to be real, anything you want, you could pay for.
How could you accept that we live on an island that was spat out of the Orinoco? We have a rainforest climate. More water falls on this country every year than we could ever consume. Understand that, eh? The amount of water that falls for free as rain on Trinidad in a year, we couldn't consume in 10 years.
True.
And we've designed all of our drainage to capture the water and throw it away in the sea. Now, how does that make sense to anybody? The Mesopotamians, the Persians, the Romans invented aqueducts that could move water from the valley to over the mountain. We are beneficiaries of millennia of water preservation information. And all we do is throw the water in the sea so that water tank, water pump, water truck, water bottle could sell.
Right.
Our education system fails our children, so lessons, extra lessons could sell. Our justice system fails our people because every court appearance is money. So if you go to court for 20 years, you're paying a man car installment.
Correct.
There are people in Trinidad and Tobago don't want these issues discussed. They don't want discussed. You are an intelligent man. You deal with people and you have a strong voice, and I hope that you follow up on some of these things because
for sure.
Check everything that I say. Go and check it. Fatima College is a prestige school. Mokorapo Secondary is Trinidad's most notorious failed school.
Right.
They share a wall. How could one school be prestige and one school be failed if they have the same curriculum, the same teachers from the same teaching college, the same Ministry of Education? How is that possible? If you took all the children from Mokorapo and put them in Fatima, and you took all the children from Fatima and put them in Mokorapo, who would succeed?
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yeah, what is the problem?
And why is government not having that conversation? I'll tell you why. Because the children of Fatima are supposed to come out and work for the children. The children of Mokorapo are supposed to come out and work for the children of Fatima. We are creating
Because I designed the system.
a labor force.
Yeah.
Undereducated labor force. Distracted, manipulated, managed. But a labor force that would accept adverse circumstances, minimum wage, cheap labor. If the education system fails them, at the age of 17, they still, 16, 17, 18, they're looking to make a life, to get children, family, boom, boom, boom. Everything that they want, whatever they want, costs money.
Yeah.
So they have to work to get it, but they're undereducated, so they don't have many options open to them, so you could exploit them.
Right.
And a lot of the business in Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of the business exploits the workforce and they're not paid properly. I am so
Definitely.
happy that I am part of a coalition that includes the PSA and the OWTU, because now we've put politics, government, and workers' rights on the same table. We no longer burning tires in the road.
Right.
We talking. We planning. We planning the economy to match the workers' requirements. You have to understand, there are so many things beating Trinidadians. The cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago is manipulated out of the reach of the average person. Right. 90% of everything we consume, everything, even in locally produced, much of it has to be imported. Those things, because we have the highest spread between the buying and selling of US, that people benefit from a 13% tax on everything that is consumed in this country, and it raises the prices of everything further. We have 90,000 acres of farmland, fertile farmland, and we grow nothing. We have 30,000 registered farmers trying to get farmland. We do not have proper predial larceny law, so even the farmers that still trying a thing will work their fingers to the bone, bend their back 6 months, and when the crop's ready to harvest tomorrow, you wake up in the morning, somebody harvest your crop last night. And I said that a simple solution was to give all of the farmers a license.
Right.
I'm a licensed farmer. This is my number. And if you're a vendor, if somebody sees you on the side of the road with a truck full of plantain, police supposed to stop and ask you where you get this truck full of plantain.
Right.
If you can't answer,
True.
if you don't have a receipt, arrest
You're
you,
not a farmer, you're a thief.
seize the truck. You can't, if you were on the side of the road with a truck full of Johnny Walker Black,
Right.
and police pull up on you and ask you where you get this from,
Yeah. You have to show something.
you can't answer.
Yeah.
They're going to seize the truck, seize the Johnny Walker, and more likely than not, you're going to get arrested.
Right.
You understand that?
Yeah.
If you put a simple protection on produce, because when you go to buy alcohol in the grocery, once you cross for like 5 liters, they're actually supposed to write a permit, you know.
Right.
You're not supposed to move alcohol. These are things designed to protect the alcohol manufacturers and the alcohol importers from theft. Why they're not doing that for our food?
Okay.
COVID taught us that food security is national security.
Right.
If we import in 90% of our food and our next pandemic takes place and stops production and transportation of food, what will we do? What will the average person do? It'll be too late to start to plant food then.
Definitely.
We should be planting food now. Up to the 70s, Trinidad and Tobago was a net food exporter. So all the talk that we're too small to grow food is lies.
But I'm not going to ask you why we're not planting our own food.
Because somebody is benefiting financially. Every problem, somebody is benefiting.
Racket Kiadan. Everything is racket, basically.
The cost of living in Trinidad would be cut in half if we grew our own food.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of the things, and I was the person who went in Price Mart, again, social media with a video. And I said, this kale that they're selling in Price Mart for $49.95, a girl named Shaliza Hassan Ali growing it in Point Fortin, and she's selling the same amount for $3.
Damn.
The exact same product, $3. The net outcome of that is through a third party, Price Mart buy out all Shaliza kale.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to get cheap food.
Right. Jeez.
The carrots, the pimentos, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the parsley in Massey stores are 500, 600, 700% higher than what they pay the farmer for it. The cost of living in Trinidad has the people against the ropes. Food costs, transportation costs, housing costs, medical costs, all of those exploit the people. The people are not paid properly. Our wages, I asked already, I said, if you just do a simple test. If you paid a man minimum wage in Trinidad to dig a hole, you paid a man in New York City to dig a hole, 1 hour's work. You get $20, $21 here, he get $21 there. His $21 could fill a small grocery cart. Your $21 can't even buy you a loaf of bread. Why is the value of our money so cheap? Why is the cost of our living so expensive?
I don't want to cut you, Mr. Alexander, but I just watching your mic, it's too red. I just open the memory and... So, hey, well, let me just take a little break and let me come back. Let me make sure your mic good. Yeah, man, back again. Yeah, Mr. Alexander, so sorry for the interruption. You continue.
I feel like I've been answering one question for a long time.
Yeah, we talking,
I talk
we
a lot,
talking,
but
we
I want to
talking.
tell you, there's so much.
Yeah.
So you ask me why? Because
Racket Garden, basically.
Trinidad is a racket land.
Garden. Yeah.
Trinidad is a racket land. There was a joint select committee hearing about customs and excise.
Right.
The head of customs admitted to the government that they are understaffed and underfunded, so they cannot secure reports.
Right.
So that on average, in a country that has 37,000 illegal guns, that is notorious for drug, narco trafficking across the world, customs and excise, because of this, have to let 50% of the container cargo that comes into this country leave the port unchecked.
Damn.
There are customs officers who tell me there are certain people who make that list, none of their containers are ever checked.
What do they call it? A diplomatic package or something like that? I hear a term float around that has something called a diplomatic package, that they don't touch it, they don't open it. And I with the guns and...
The untouchables, right?
Yeah.
The untouchables.
Like that real thing.
Brother, when you see these young boys from these communities with AR-15 and M16, and AR-15 is not a cheap gun.
No. That car price.
And I've said that to people. I said, these people standing, posing with a gun that costs more than the house they're living in.
No lie.
Who bring that gun for them?
Who? Not me.
We have to, as a people, start to ask all these questions, because all of the things that are wrong in Trinidad are fixable, you know.
Yeah, I want to ask Mr. Alexander. You might know better than me. I know the people of my country know these things. If they know in depth, they know what's going on. They know it's racket running, they know all these things. One party been in power for over a decade and more. Why you think the people still voting back for the same government over and over? Since my grandfather days, I was 6 years old, watching TTT and whatever, and my grandfather strips in, my grandmother strips in, Pande man in. And now I was 34 years old, 30 years later, and it's the same conversation. Why?
Because there are people in this country that control the country that you don't know or you don't know about.
Yeah.
And they control the politics and they own the PNM. And I'm saying that to tell you this. All the drama you see going on in the UNC is because Kamala is purging that party of anybody who are not dedicated to a better Trinidad and Tobago. She wants a legacy.
That UNC you're talking about, right?
UNC.
So she purged any people out of the UNC.
Now look at the PNM.
Yeah.
They were supposed to have an internal election for their new political leader, Kit Rowley, resigning.
Right.
They never had an election. They just say, take Stuart Young. Now, Stuart Young has no track record, no success, nothing. If you ask anybody, what has Stuart Young accomplished in his life that justifies you considering him as a prime minister?
Right.
He's had 2 ministries, I believe, 2 or 3 ministries, and failed at all. Failed as Minister of National Security and failed as Minister of Energy. On his watch, Petrotrin closed down.
Right.
National gas companies closing down. They are seizing control, the unseen hand in Trinidad and Tobago. We hear people talk about the 1%, you hear them talk about the contract mafia, the school book mafia, the food mafia. This is real stuff.
Real thing, yeah.
And they are not happy with the continuous election cycle. They're not happy with the democracy. They're not happy that you have a voice.
Yeah.
They want to put their puppet in that office to do what they want so that they could control the country.
You say there are people over them. Who are these people though? Who are these people?
They have some buildings in Trinidad and Tobago. When you drive past them, they have certain symbols.
Right.
When they design, like the Ministry of Health building, when you look at the front of a building and you see there's a awning over the entrance with a set of pyramids, that's not there for functional purpose. You know?
Right.
Those pyramids don't have nothing, no light, no drainage, no nothing. There's no form and function to that. Those pyramids are messages. Any building that you see with triangles in the design.
Compass.
All right.
Cheese.
Now come the man. Come the man. I say, not hit my hand so. And my hand accidentally did this just now. And they're going to say, look at TV, said in Illuminati science. Right? But I'm telling you. You're asking and you know.
Yeah.
You're asking and
I know, but I don't know. I'm not
August
sure.
31st, 1962, when the Union Jack came down and the red, white, and black went up, we got independent in name only. The people that were operating this country, owned the treasury, owned the politicians, they continued. That didn't change. The $3 trillion that left this country, it left to them. $3 trillion is a lot of money. Let me tell you something. There's a number to tell you. 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 22 years. See the difference between 1 million and 1 billion? A trillion is 1,000 billion. So that is 3 trillion is 93,000 years. 93,000 years of seconds. If you had spent $1 of our money every second, you would have had to spend money for 93,000 years. That's what's going on. Trinidadians don't understand. We have poverty that shouldn't exist. The owners of this country are the people. Every single person with a birth certificate, you know what your birth certificate is? That is one share in the corporation Trinidad and Tobago. You own that. You own that. That is your share. So the elections, the budget should be a reading of the shareholders' equity. This is what we did. This is what took place in the country. We did $60 billion in sales. We spent $30 billion around the country. There's $30 billion left. Every year on your birthday, it's easy to do. Every year on your birthday, a deposit will be made into your account.
Right.
You should be accustomed to that.
Yeah.
That's how it is in Norway.
Talking my language now.
But that's how it is in Norway. That's how it is in Dubai. On your birthday, you get 40,000, 50,000. Imagine you vote for a government. Check this out. Let's say you think they did well with the 30 billion. We did 60 billion. So that 40,000 you get last year, this year you get $110,000 in your bank account. On your birthday, you telling me that we need to campaign, you get your share. The government's job is to properly secure and manage the country. They're not supposed to be in the business of business, sharing foreign exchange, who getting what contracts. The Minister of Public Works in Trinidad and Tobago sits in Sinclair and decides when Point 14 and Maruga Road going to pave. That's madness.
Correct.
That's madness. You could have decentralized this whole country, but everything is centralized for corruption.
Yep.
Trinidadians have never benefited from oil, gas, sugar. We had booms in cocoa. We had booms in this country that we never benefited from. And I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago that there are more booms to come. Trinidad is quite possibly the most blessed island on planet Earth.
Yeah, no lie.
Any other country had Tobago, Tobago would be the #1 tourist destination in the world. They have things that Tobago have. That no Bora Bora, no Bermuda, no Bahamas have.
That's underrated Tobago, man.
Tobago, no, they don't have better words to say what you just said. Tobago is the best, bar none, tropical destination in the whole world. Any other country have the largest brain coral, and you're talking about it on every Discovery Channel show, and people come in by the millions to check it out.
Just to see it,
Any other country have the nylon pool. That's a wonder of the world.
Out in the middle of the ocean, shallow water.
But the average Trinbagonian don't understand and respect. You know why? Because we don't know. We don't know. They burn down They burned down the big sugar factory that was left with the wheel, and I thank God I got to see it before it burned down. We treat Tobago so bad.
Yeah.
You know what's our next massive money earner for tourism? The Pitch Lake in Lambury.
Well, I was there 2 days ago. We do a little documentary on the Pitch Lake, and it was one of the most saddest things I ever seen. I'm telling you, it was the first time I was on the Pitch Lake. And I was amazed to see what was the Pitch Lake, first and foremost. I was also asking myself why I never came here before. Why nobody ever influenced me to come here.
The springs around the Pitch Lake are health. I mean, you could just health tourism, ecotourism.
It had some youths I was talking to, they cleaned up the bush that was in front of the Pitch Lake, and they were saying before they clean it up, tourists would have come, see the bush, and was skeptical to even go on the Pitch Lake. And they clean up the bush, they build bench, they paint up all kind of thing, paint stones, and then they come and they kick them out.
Bro,
and they tell them they don't want them there again.
But I'm telling you that, anywhere else in the world, that Pitch Lake would have hotels, guest houses, airstrip, helicopter landing pad, shuttle.
Food selling, artifact selling, souvenirs.
Brazil Carnival gets millions of tourists, you know. A million tourists in your economy is $1 billion on the ground. That's not $1 billion in the 1% hand, you know. That's $1 billion to taxis, car rentals, apartments, knick-knack, tourist trap, food, restaurant, doubles, wherever. I tell people we build in airports with thing to come out to the plane, and you come out the plane and you're in the air. Before you know it, you're in air condition and whoosh, you're outside. Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to be an airport with a carrot shed. Tourists come in to come off that plane and walk down them stairs and take a picture with the plane behind them. I'm in the tropics. Listen, you walk in the center of the airport, Starbucks, Royal Castle, Church's Chicken, KFC. People will say, hey, this is Callaloo.
Now you're talking about that here, You come out and steel pan plane.
The first time a tourist see Callaloo, you ever hear them talk? What is this?
Callaloo.
You're not leaving iron and steel and glass to come for more iron and steel and
Starbucks.
Glass.
What is that? What is that? It's Auntie Mabel coffee we supposed to be drinking there.
Bro.
Is that really thing?
Listener, the first time a tourist should feel a hot doubles in the hand should be Piarco Airport. It should be free. It should be free. Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago. What the hell is this? Take a picture, Joe. Because they will post that for the world to see, and that will bring 1 million more tourists. What the hell is Paria doing? What is they doing? You imagine you step off a plane and they have this whole tourist company not spending money on nonsense, because a man like you, with your kind of following, and they have influencers that's come to Trinidad. Now we get jokey reviews, but you could imagine the average person taking a video of their experience off the plane into the airport. There should be people there in Hawaii, they just come and drape this thing on you and give you a little papaya thing and
dance with you.
When you think tropics, you think Hawaii. Why you don't think Tobago? Because we don't sell Tobago. Tobago's Pigeon Point with that little hut at the end of it is iconic as a tropical.
Sometimes you see it and forget it's Tobago. You're like, what now?
Other people using it. Other people using steel pan. Steel pan is not supposed to be put them down in an orchestra pit, put them in a shirt and tie, and be playing Beethoven. All right, you could do that great. But what pan is, and I remember Robert Amar told me this, so I want to give him his credit. Every pan yard should be a pan theater, and it should be, we should have tourists in this country. Carnival is not 1 week. Carnival is not 1 week. We crush everything together, but just pan. You could take Panorama out of Carnival and just make Panorama a big 1 week celebration in this country that will become a carnival in itself. Just pan. But we don't treat Trinidad and Tobago with the respect it deserves. We've never had a government that said our cultural dynamism. Our every creed and race sells. Our beautiful people sells. I remember this woman, I think her name is Attila Springer. I think that's her first name, but her last name I think is Springer. And she wrote in a paper, she said, we are the only people foolish enough to turn our back to the sea and build buildings to block our view of the sea. Anywhere else in the world, Trinidad has a natural bay where there are no waves from Chaguaramas almost to Icacos.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had a government with vision that made it possible for you on the waterfront
Right.
to walk, ride, drive as far as you could go. There's a road from Argentina to Alaska, you know. There's a road from Argentina to Alaska, and tourists, they have people their bucket list is to drive that road. Trinidad has, if you were to make a list of the things that we have that could bring people here by the millions, tourism is not carnival.
Definitely.
Our sun, sea, that will bring people here. Maracas, Las Cuevas, the North Coast. Just the North Coast.
Definitely.
We don't even pay attention to the value of the North Coast. The North Coast should be the Gold Coast. There should be hundreds of thousands of hotel rooms. You should have landing strips. So you land in Piaco, you take a small plane and you land in the North Coast. You don't ever have to see. We're talking about sandals. Sandals is joke. Sandals coming to exploit what Trinidad and Tobago have. We don't need sandals.
That's monetized, right? Yeah. Alright, so let me just tell the people who are going there. You good? Right, so yeah, battery. Now you think that's go, but
Phillip just talk so much.
we need real battery for Mr. Alexander.
Battery. No, but that was Satish told you at the start of the thing. He said, just ask the man one question and leave him. No, but I am not the only person who love my country. I am not the only person who have plans for my country. I'm not the only person who have ideas and policies. I wrote a book reinventing Trinidad and Tobago. We never published it, but out of that book, we took all of the policies that became the Progressive Empowerment Party. And to write that book, I was meeting with people, judges, DPPs, doctors, teachers. I could tell you, if you drop me into any ministry tomorrow, I could tell you, this is the solution, because I did a lot of research. So I know that in Trinidad and Tobago, to solve the water problem permanently, create a program called Capture, Hold, Treat, Distribute. We told people, so if you ever hear a government doing it, remember where you heard it from first. From the cathedral to the Hyatt, if you rip up the Brian Lara Promenade and sink a 50-foot deep cistern below it and then float the promenade back on top, all of the rainwater that runs down from Cascade, St. Anne's, Chancellor, Maraval, runs down into Port of Spain and floods South Key, will go into that cistern that you could capture, hold, treat, distribute. Port of Spain and the rest of the western part of Trinidad and Tobago could never not have water. And every part of Trinidad and Tobago, because of the rain that falls, you could do this. Lakes. If you create lakes, do you know that we occupy 13% of Trinidad? Every building, road, street, everything you know is only 13% of Trinidad. You could just create a massive lake in the center of Trinidad. When you're driving south, you see all that land on your left, just create a massive lake. Let it currently fill that lake. You understand what I'm saying? And then from that lake, you could, all those communities. But you could also have entertainment. People will come to use the lake. There are so many ways, and I say that we know the solution. We know the solution to education. Abolish the SEA, make all schools 10-year schools, zone the schools. You have parents coming from Sangre Grande to Nelson Street, Port of Spain on a morning. That is insane. That is insane. That a parent has to wake your child up before God get up, put them in the car and drive to Nelson Street. That's insane. You have children in Port of Spain going to school in San Fernando, Chaguanas. It's insane. Every single school. We have the technology today. One of our candidates, Brendan Butts, for Diego Martin Northeast, His business is smart boards. The blackboard is no longer, I mean, you could train class managers where you used to have teachers before. So now you're training managers. And you could put smart boards and 60-inch televisions, and you could have one teacher for science, one teacher for physics, one teacher for Spanish, teach every child who's in that class at the exact same time. We did it for COVID.
Right.
We did it for COVID. I mean, we did it shorthand. We let this teacher talk to these students and that teacher talk. One teacher broadcast. It's just a broadcast. And you have people trained to manage, answer questions, pick up homework, whatever. The children no longer supposed to be doing paper. They're supposed to have tablets. We're supposed to move them.
You recorded?
Yeah, recorded.
Alright.
No, that's what I'm saying.
This battery need dying. This battery need dying. Well, let's spare, man.
Technology.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you, every single community should have a 24/7 health center for every 3-mile radius, 5,000 people. If you're on the North Coast and a snake bites you, you're dead. If you're on the North Coast and you get a heart attack, you're dead. It shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be so, and it's easy to fix. And I want you to hear me. It's easy for us to feed ourselves, lower the cost of living. The houses that we pay HDC $1 million for are not worth $80,000, and we could lower the prices. And we could lower the prices by controlling the cost of the material. We're not supposed to be buying our blocks and our steel from Sabga. We're supposed to be in the block and steel business ourselves. We could be bringing in blocks and steel from other countries that are cheaper. We could be manufacturing houses. Right now, there are 3D printed houses that in the world, you could actually buy a machine that just printing houses. So the technology is changing, and the cost of housing, the housing needs, do a housing need assessment, build proper communities. I remember when this woman, they had made fun of the woman because they dropped her in an HDC community and she had to walk for 20 minutes to get to the highway to take her child to school. She said, that ain't making sense. She gone back and lived in her little thing that she had before. Remember her?
Of course.
And people,
that ain't making no sense.
That ain't making no sense, but people laugh at the poor woman, but she was correct.
Yeah.
Government vision, I telling you, give us a chance. I telling you, if Trinidad want a better country, move away from the race voting. It's not helping nobody. If the PNM was really the Afro-Trinbagonian party, how come the Afro-Trinbagonian community is at the bottom rung of society, owns no industry, not even culture? Other people owns Afro culture in this country. All of the urban radio stations are owned by people who are not Afro-Trinis. Why?
Yeah, so Mr. Alexander, that's the first time a battery ever died in my mics. Right? Excuse me. But yes, they were saying that the lady that...
No, just saying, you know, we're not... I want to oversimplify it because the average person could understand that we're doing things without planning, and the most important, oh sorry about that, pick up the child. The most important, no, but I'm not picking up. The most important part of the process is the planning. Look at everything that you have in place here.
Shocked,
You ain't just show up and say, let me do an interview. You plan the thing. In our education system, we don't even know what Trinidad and Tobago is. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a manufacturing company, an oil company? I tell people, agriculture, you don't just pelt a stone in agriculture, make a plan. Pepper mash is $2,500 a 55-gallon drum. So that means our Moruga scorpion pepper that's selling 5 for £5. That's how much it sells for. But the pepper mash is perfect for, it has the right amount of Scofield units to use to make pepper spray. So if we were growing pepper mash and growing Moruga scorpion peppers and reducing it to pepper mash and exporting that, we could do that by the billions of dollars. And then our younger generation coming up, you can tell them, okay, we're going to get into the manufacturing of pepper spray canisters. There's a whole other business downstream from planting Moruga scorpion peppers to how do we manufacture canisters. These are things that you could use to plan how you're going to turn the economy around. But I'm saying that if you know what your country is, we need agro processing, tourism, we need heavy industry, light industry, electro industry, whatever, construction, whatever you think, oil and gas, petrochemicals, the pitch lake, how are we going to monetize the pitch lake, what we do it. so that you then could create a curriculum in your university that we need this amount of geologists, this amount of technicians, and you could give people gate or free education in these things.
Right.
You come back and work 3-4 years for the country, you'll get paid, but not big money, but you'll get paid to pay back, to give back, and then you're on your way, like an internship.
Right.
That would guide the tertiary education, would guide the secondary education. We're teaching children nonsense. We just have this catch-all curriculum that a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know what's children in this country go to school with a geometry pan and never use it?
Me?
Mommy and daddy pay big money for this geometry pan
for real.
that we just using it as the right thing on the desk with the point.
Digging up the thing.
Yeah, but I'm showing you. T-square. I walk around with this blasted T-square for years
Man,
and never
licks
use
with
it.
T-square.
Never use it. Never use. And I'm saying that a geometry pan serves a purpose and a T-square serves a purpose. Put people on a track. That you going towards this kind of industry, you will need this, and you going towards that kind of industry. Schools.
Set them up. Yeah, set them up. Don't set them up, but set them up. Definitely. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So, Ms. Alexander, as I say, I know you have a tight schedule. Do you have anything that you want to tell the people before we wrap up?
No, this was a really enjoyable interview, and I would like to one day return the favor and interview you and ask you how you get into this.
Yeah.
How you got into this to the level you're at.
Yeah. I mean, I just really want to spread some light positively. You know, you say,
but
you know,
in the beginning, I was telling you, sorry for cutting you, but in the beginning I was telling you what I did to get to social media. You are that next level. You take it from here, where you see it going.
I think that my whole mindset towards what I'm doing right now is I think that Trinidadians not accustomed. It's like how you say it's a place of truth where you talk the truth and they want to kill you, they want to slander you, they want to fight you down just for talking the truth. I think that we'd be very backwards in those times because I'm in the music industry of things. So when I look around to like America and England and Jamaica and all these different industries, they understand shows like this. So if Phillip Alexander come on the show and he talk his truth, nothing is wrong with that. That is what we're supposed to be doing as leaders or as podcast hosts or as artists or as politicians. We're supposed to come out and talk and inspire the youths, give them the information that they need. But in Trinidad, when somebody come out and buff up the chest and talk,
mash down. Wanna mash it up.
is a problem. You
It's
know,
a fight
it's
down.
called my podcast the Bacchanal podcast because
Yes, but on the right podcast, they say that about me.
right, a lot of artists has come on my show and talk about soca mafia and who fight them down and radio
But you
stations and
say
playing.
that, let me tell you, I know a guy named, he's called himself Trinidad Killer, you know?
Of course. Use the man who say 9 o'clock in the morning and a gunman in your hole.
But when Trinidad Killer, I mean, you watch that man and the fight down, he take, and it's only Nicki Minaj say, you know what? I got protect
Right.
you.
Why Nicki Minaj had to do that? You know,
Well,
it's
see,
have
she's a-
artists right here.
She's
Who
a
could I do that?
billionaire. Nobody can tell Nicki Minaj what to do. They didn't cut that road for her. They didn't burn them midnight hours that she burned to get where she is.
Yep.
And she said, you know what? I'll help this one.
Yep.
And that.
And that alone, you see, like
Bro.
just collaborating with Trinidad
Bro.
Killer, you see what you do, right?
But that's what I'm going to say.
So if
and
you have more of that.
This could be a step for her becoming a producer to bring real authentic Caribbean music. She is a pipeline. People wanted to ride the woman back and use her. And that's not what we're talking about. It's a business. Work the business like a business. And you look what she do for Trinidad Killer.
Yep.
He is now a black belt in this thing. He learned under one of the best, right?
Yeah.
It's just about pelting a stone. I know for certain a couple things. I know that my country could be the best place in the world to live, bar none. I know that Trinidad is blessed. Trinidadians are the most beautiful people. Our way of loving each other. You and I talk for 5 minutes and we're best friends forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Our way of loving each other, they have no other country in the world has that. We can't lose that. We can't let these greedy people take that from us. We need to step back a couple steps from where we at and say, listen, your vision for Trinidad is not my vision for Trinidad. I want a Trinidad where if you tell me every creed and race must find an equal place, Let me see every creed and race having the same access to the same benefits, that the children from Beetham and Rapai Village must have the same access to the extracurricular activities as children from Westmoreland. If we don't, we're doing something wrong.
Doing something wrong. Off balance. Need to balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
On the 28th of April, I want to tell you though.
Yeah. Talk to them now, man.
No, I didn't want to use it for the politics, but I want to tell you.
Talk to them now, man.
Give us a chance, because I really believe in this woman, Kamala Prasad says, I call her the general. She's laughed, but I tell her, you assemble an army. When I look at the men and women around me and the different people that she pull, Kurt Sinet, ex-boxer, we in a meeting talking the other night, manifesto, he said, ma'am, what about sport? It there, we there, you know, Roger Alexander, you talk, Johnny Abraham, when you're talking about fighting crime, them is two men that you know have the,
Right.
they have all of the brain trust to get that fixed if you need to fix it. She's assembled a powerful army for good.
Let me ask you one controversial question, Ms. Alexander. Just from a young person observing, I just want to hear your thoughts. What about if we say things like Kamala is an alcoholic and all these things, and that is the reason why we don't want to vote well?
Why?
Because you know that is
Let
like
me ask
Yeah.
you a controversial question.
Right.
If you know that between 2010 and 2015, life was better under Kamala,
Well, yeah.
we saved billions into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. We generated billions of US cover for imports. Foreign exchange was available. Water was available. They created 55,000 jobs. You could have opened a business in 3 days and be up and running. No new taxes. They didn't have the price of gas. I just paid $400 to fill a gas tank in a car. You could have bought a car a couple of days ago. If all of that she did,
Right.
and they say she's drunk,
Right.
we should all be drunk.
And what was the part where they
No,
say
no,
the
asking
thief
it
the
is-
money?
Well-
I'm not asking it. I ain't saying I
All
believe
right,
in that.
no,
They just talk as
no,
we
listen,
split, and
I telling you this as a leader.
Yeah.
As a leader, let me tell you, the Pope have priests in the church that molesting little children still.
Right.
I was personal friends with Father Andrew Allen when I was in the St. Teresa's youth group and choir and stuff, and Father Andrew Allen went back to Ireland and went to jail for pedophilia. In every organization,
They will have the bad apples.
they will have people.
Right.
But who fired more members of their government than Kamala?
Right.
This government just paid $55 million to Azar to rent a building that they never touched. They never get the keys for. It was never functional. They didn't consult the DPP. They just tell him you could use that office. He said, you put me in a fishbowl in the crime capital and didn't think about the safety of my people. Look at DPP get assassinated one morning coming from church under a state of emergency. So you have to be able to pay attention. Kamala Prasad Bissessar gives everybody, this is yours to fix this.
Right.
But when your name get called, she's supposed to fire Gary Griffith. All the big name he say, you have Mary King. She removed people from office if it was in any way controversial, anything that looked like. So you had a responsibility yourself to manage your own. So when people say that they do this and they do that, I ask you, we spent $500 million trying to prosecute Ish and Steve for $1 billion.
Right.
So we literally spend good money after bad. There's something wrong with Trinidad and Tobago where we can't do first world things under these governments. That ought to change.
Yeah. No,
You
right.
have to get this, what does they say? The juice and worth the squeeze. You have to get return on your investment. If you're spending $500 million to chase $1 billion, and you know you just make us lose more money. Throw money in a hole.
Right.
We need to get to a place where Trinidad and Tobago is run properly. If you tell Kamala Prasad Bissessar, you know what we want to do? We want to go back to the tenders board. We want to go back to contracts being awarded and paid where professionals sign. If you're a professional, you come and you sign off on a road, and it's not a proper road, you could lose your license.
Right.
We paving Crush Run. in Trinidad, and people accepting that. That will never last.
Yeah, true.
There are no retaining walls on the side. You know, there's supposed to be a 6-inch to 1 foot retaining wall on either side of the road to hold the road together.
Yeah.
We don't build that, so the road just spread out and collapse. We have pipes running below it with water. So when the road starts spread out and collapse, the pipes start to break, the water start to leak, create a sinkhole, the road collapse, boom, pothole. We have professionals drawing big salaries, signing off on that. Take away your license, lose your job, lose your pension. All of a sudden, people start to take things seriously.
Take things serious, yeah.
We could get the country today. I believe this woman, they've demonized her. They're good at that narrative. I mean, they're really good at dirtying your name. But she survived them all. And I stand with her. I endorse her. I tell you that I believe that together, this army that she's created, going to create a Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to remember. We are going to remember 2025 as the year Trinidad turned a corner and became a first world developed country where every creed and race could actually find an equal place.
And that is it. So, Mr. Alexander, will you leave a little message with the youths and them who are watching right now?
Hope and opportunity. Let me tell you something. That's all you all need. Nobody's supposed to be in your way planning your life. What we're supposed to do is give you hope and opportunity. Opportunity is finance. Opportunity is credit. Opportunity is foreign exchange. Opportunity is business starting crucibles. Opportunity is proper education if that's where you want to go. Opportunity is jobs. We need to create jobs. We need to say, okay, we have 20,000 children coming out of the education, vomiting themselves into the country every year. Where are the jobs? You're telling me that all of these children have to go and fight up for the same, put fries in a box and twirl a baton when we could be creating. I said when Elon Musk got the contract from Budget and made him the richest man in the world, or from Hertz and made him the richest man in the world, I said, call him. Tell him, come to Trinidad and let us assemble all your dashboards. Just your dashboards. You could put 1 million people to work making dashboard. LG, let's make fridge. They have 600 million people in South America that you could export duty-free from Trinidad. Why are we not creating cell phone industry? The people of India live in a country that in 20 years, 50% of the population of the planet will be working for companies out of India. Why? They had vision. In the 90s, they say, okay, information technology is the world we're going to be. So they started being the telephone operators. People used to laugh at them. Comedians used to make joke about the Indian accent. Now, the 10 top companies in the world, 8 of them, the CEO is from India. Most of the patents for information technology is in India. You have to have a vision. You have to start somewhere and go in that direction. We could do that. We have visions for everything. You ask me a problem. You want to do this again anytime. Any problem that exists in this country could fix. The most important for the young people is that we open for them jobs, careers, opportunities, the ability to own a home. When you tell a young man that you start your career at the age of 18 or 20, 21, and by 30 you could start paying to your home, that by 60, because you blink twice and this life passing, and that you get to a place where you and your 4 children, you could start to leave generational wealth growing and you're ending poverty. We need that. We need vote for yourself. Don't vote destruction, don't vote race. Vote for yourself. Vote for people who telling you this is how it's done. I telling Trinidad and Tobago, I will be the people's voice in the government. That will never change.
No, never change. ENK. Yeah, and that is it. I mean, I can respect that kind of energy, whether right or wrong. You know, because, you know, we're coming up in a time where, as you say again, the truth hurts, and a lot of people are afraid to speak the truth. You know, even my little platform here, a lot of people are afraid to come on KG platform because they feel when they reach here, it's too much truth now. You know, and that truth will slow down your progress. You know, and I want to see that change. You know, so Mr. Alexander.
No, this was an absolute pleasure. It was a long. This was the longest interview in history. But it was good.
You had to get it out, man.
No, I enjoyed it. Any other time, any time again.
Yeah, for sure.
It's cool.
Yeah, man. And
I appreciate it greatly. And thank you to all of the audience. I want to say that I just want to give this. My number is 682-2110. It's been like that for a long time. Don't use it to call, but if you have a problem or you need some guidance, you need some help, you can send me a WhatsApp on 682-2110. If it's in my power to help you, I will.
Ah, boy. And that is it. Boom.